Ugh, taxes. Not when you've got strategies.
Let's go, Terri.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Double D, Triple T. We got double deductions with Tax Time Terri. I'm Terri Peters. In case you didn't know, I have a podcast that interviews people that have heart and they bring heart into their business. They share heart with the people that are their customers or their clients or their investors. So today I have a really special guest. His name is Khris Allen, and Khris Allen is the Director of Client Services and the head of the 1031 department at Eckard Enterprises. And if you don't know what Eckard Enterprises is, it is an oil and gas company that I have actually several clients that are invested in. And I was actually able to go out for a field trip last week. I literally flew in from Miami into Dallas, the Love Airport, went up to Allen, Texas, spent the night, had a wonderful dinner on Tuesday night, good old steak dinner at a really cool steakhouse. Met everybody a few people that were on the field trip, but I met Khris, I met his wife, and then Troy Eckard, who owns the company, he's the CEO of the company. He literally came by our table at the end after a dinner meeting that he had to introduce himself and to welcome me to Texas. Then on Wednesday morning, we literally took a van, myself with six investors, and drove all the way up into Oklahoma City and went and looked at some of the wells along the way. We could see them from the road. And then Khris was kind of like, answering every single question that all of us had, and I had a ton. And then we stopped at a couple different drill sites and met the supervisors that were there, watched them break down an entire drilling system. So they were moving it to another location. And we just had a fantastic time walking around, just seeing how things were, looking how the mineral rights are started, looking at some of the drilling locations that were in the general area and talking about the future plans that they had. Learned a ton and really enjoyed the whole entire atmosphere. Had dinner afterwards with a few of the guys that were part of the group, and then we all left the next day. And they offer these field trips for their investors and people that are interested. So three out of the six were people that were interested in investing in Eckard Enterprises, in the mineral rights, and in the working capital or the working interest of the oil rigs. And they came just to see, what it's all about and make a decision whether they're going to invest or not. And then the other three were heavily invested in the company and they shared their stories. And I'll tell you at the dinner after everybody was gone, it was just a few of us left. The comments, like one of the biggest ones, what did you feel about this? And one of the guys said, you know what? I feel like I can really trust these people. And that's super important to me. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to introduce Khris to everybody today. And I'm going to stop talking and let Khris introduce himself. So, Khris, if you can just share a little bit about Eckard Enterprises and how it started, and then what sets your firm apart in the oil and gas space.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Terri, for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I had such a great time last week when you got to come up. And that's one of the aspects of Eckard Enterprises that I, as an investor, truly loved about the company before I came on as the Director of Client Services. And that's the transparency. It's the education. It's about, hey, our investors, come out and see us. Put your boots on the ground, come and see the investment, get educated about the assets that you're investing in so that you can make smart financial decisions. Now, Eckard Enterprises is an energy company that was started by Troy Eckard. Troy Eckard has had 40 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. He's been on the capital raising side. He's been on the drilling side. He's been on the mineral rights side. He personally has in his portfolio thousands of wells that he has drilled and been part of drilling for the last 40 years. He's gone through cycles in oil and gas. He's gone through the technology advances. He's gone through the opportunities that have presented us today. And that 40 years of experience has culminated in him bringing a team together. We have our own geologist. We have our own petro engineers. We have our own land division, our own division order. All the assets, the intellectual assets and the skilled assets to come around to be one of the premier oil and gas companies in the United States today.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you can feel it when I went out to visit, there's a good energy. Like everybody's respectful, even on the site when you've got these guys that are, that oil all over, the dirt all over their clothes and everything. They were respectful to each other. They worked together as a team. I felt like Troy was the same way. I mean, he just came walking in, from another meeting when we were at dinner and just introduced himself and, made a couple jokes and, told us a little bit about the meeting that he was in. And, he was leaving for the night to go back home, but there was this comfort of everybody at the table and even the people in the restaurant. So, I mean, to me, I love working with people that don't have airs. I do not like that, the arrogance that can happen with certain people. And you just don't feel that. You just feel like you're part of a family. And to me, it was worth every penny to go out there because I really got to experience that, not just with Troy, not just with you, not just with your wife, but with the six other investors that I was out there with, the people that we had lunch with that are working on the site. I mean, they were just incredible guys. They're family men. They've got cattle. They've got they're the Texan. The typical what non-Texans would think Texas is about: oil and gas and cattle. And it felt right, and that makes a big difference because in my world, I'm a tax strategist. I'm a business advisor. So yeah, the tax returns are great, and that's like the report card for what I do with my clients. But more so, what I do is I go to the alternative investment conferences that Mark Kohler and Matt Sorensen put on, and I go to the directed IRA summits and things like that because I want to meet the people that are giving opportunities for investors. Because I have clients, they're building their retirement plans, they're looking for ways to invest. We're trying to find ways to give their money a job, and so oil and gas is one of the great investments that people can make, whether it's through retirement accounts or if it's just through your regular 401k or through doing outside of a 401k or a regular retirement account. There's so many different facets. And when you have high W-2 earners, there's very little that we can do to help save money on taxes. And one of the biggest ones is the working interest for oil and gas. And so that was something I wanted to come out and see with my own eyes since I've got clients that are now investing with the oil and gas at Eckard. I prefer Eckard. I mean, Eckard to me is, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell people what to do, but I can tell you what I'm doing. I can tell you I can introduce you to people that are doing these things so that you can kind of put your due diligence to work and interview. And you are so easy to introduce my clients to. I send an email, hey, Khris, I want to introduce you to so-and-so, and so-and-so, I want you to introduce you to Khris. And it just turns out to be a really wonderful conversation. And then when we're ready to do the investment, your team handles all the work. I mean, I've done investments with other companies in different areas, and sometimes I end up having to do so much work to implement the strategy that we're trying to do. And with you, it's the easiest thing. I make a phone call, and you basically take it from there. And that really is a blessing for me, for my clients. And when we're working with directed IRA, we want to make it as easy as possible for them. And by the way, directed IRA is one of Mark Kohler's companies, and it's Matt Sorensen's company. There's several owners, but they're two of the original investors in the company. And this is where we set up accounts so that you could self-direct. So you could do things outside of Wall Street. You could do Wall Street in there, but that's where you're going to be doing your oil and gas interests. That's where you're going to be your promissory notes, buying real estate, a lot of little things like that you're not really doing like a typical financial house. So with that said, I just want to let you know how much I love your story. And just, I would love it if you could just share a little bit about how you personally got started with Eckard and just share that with our listeners.
Yep. Thanks, Terry. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you had that opportunity to come out and and visit us because in any type of investment, it's not what is the investment. It's who's doing the investment. Can you trust that company? Can you trust those individuals? Can you have that relationship? Because look, we all work extremely hard for our money. And to go out there and not do your due diligence and just put a cover over your eyes and say, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to invest in this, it's not prudent for us that work so hard for that money. So my story with Eckard Enterprises, I'm actually an investor. I started investing with Eckard Enterprises back in 2020. I got cold called by Eckard Enterprises in 2019 when the world shut down and everything was set, and I was sitting at home. All right. And my first question to Eckard was, how did you get my number? Who are you calling me? And what are you doing? And what are you selling? So one of the really great things that happened to me, and I kind of use this as there was something guiding my hand to answer that telephone call because a few weeks earlier I had started to review a commercial real estate course from one of my mentors. And in that course, he had talked about how he invested in a working interest project, had passive income coming. It was a great complement to his real estate. So it sparked my interest. And when Eckard called, the only reason I entertained a cold call was the fact that I had studied that commercial real estate course. So I gave them the opportunity to understand and gave them the opportunity to teach me what they were having. And over the 6 months, I did extreme due diligence on the company. I'm a trust but verify investor. And one of the things that I really, really loved is the fact that they didn't ask me to invest on the first day. They gave me all the transparency of the company. They let me come down and visit them at the home office. And then eventually I got to meet Troy Eckard personally, get to talk to him about our struggles, what we're doing, what I want to do as an investor. And the first meeting that I got with the CEO was, hello, Mr. Allen. Glad you were looking to come on to us as a partner. I'm Troy Eckard. Here's my FINRA number. Here's my 800 number that's been in service for over 30 years. Here's my home address. And here's my social security number. And that blew me away. To have the type of trust and transparency that Troy has in running his company and being the person that he is offering the investments in the oil and gas industry, it really, really grabbed me because I want to invest with somebody who has a fiduciary responsibility, not only to their investors, but to their company, to their people, to their employees, because together we're stronger than we are separately. And for us as high net worth individuals to go out there and try to wade through all the investments that are available to us is very, very tough. We have to really make sure we do our due diligence on there. So, in 2020, I started investing with Eckard Enterprises. I personally now have 42 of the mineral rights packages that Eckard offers. I also have 9 working interest projects. I participate in our newest offering, which is our proven developed producing asset class, where we bought 800 producing wells with the opportunity to drill more wells to increase the cash flow and grow that asset. I also invest in the midstream assets that Eckard Enterprises offers. We own the second largest pipeline in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm proud to be an investor in that. Now, what stands Eckard apart? All right. Troy Eckard's been in the business for 40 years. All right. That was something that really touched me when I was doing my due diligence. You know, the way that I actually invested with Eckard, the education that they gave me, the transparency, let me teach you about the asset and what it can do for you as an investor was absolutely incredible for me. I would literally text Troy an answer, question at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would get an answer. It was incredible. I got to be very, very good friends with Mr. Eckard as the investing career went along. So much so that we got to be really great friends. I've been on vacation with him. I got to know the person at the head of the company. One thing about Eckerd, we have our own geologist, we have our own production engineers, we have our own division order, we have our own landmen. We're a well-rounded company that has accumulated personal assets and people with skills so that we can go out there and get assets that we can all pool our money together and have access to where we would not be able to do that individually.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you never really know. I mean, it seems to me when people are trying to invest, the companies give the least amount of information. They give the marketing stuff, but they don't give the meat. And I felt like Troy gave the meat, and it's not a secret. This is
Yeah.
information that is important. And this brings me to my next question. What kinds of investors are typically the best fit for Eckerd's offerings?
Well, obviously, with the alternative asset class, we're looking for accredited investors. Um, what does accredited investor mean? You have some type of certification, you have some type of that, you're a high net worth individual with, $200,000 a year in salary over the last 2 years, or 300 combined, or you have a net worth that's $1 million. That's great. They are 20 million accredited investor millionaires in the country and accredited investors. What we're looking for is contrarians, people that are looking for an investment that gives you the opportunity to get into an asset class that has such a dynamic effect on the entire world. Our assets are literally from the time that they're produced to the time they're sold, it was within days. And it's a 100 complete consumption of that asset. So, it's really been a great thing. As me, I'm a trust but verify investor. I love to do that, and when I joined the team with Eckard, I was actually on vacation with Troy, and I had told him that I was going to retire in 2023. I have a small contracting company back in Atlanta. We do fire alarm systems, life safety, and one of our customers was Amazon. So I invested through growing my company, learning what I needed to do to buy asset classes. I've been a big real estate investor. I've had, you know, multiple houses and real estates, and single family to triplexes and duplexes. So I've been an investor who has looked in there and said, where do I go that I can invest, I can grow my net worth, and I can have, number one, preservation of capital. So, my journey took me to the fact where I was on vacation with Troy and some other partners that had become very good friends, where I told Troy I was going to retire, and that I was looking to do that. My company has been very successful. We were able to really ride through the 2008 crash and that, and make sure that our business grew by having that customer in Amazon. We built all of their warehouses over the Southeast and put in the fire alarm system. When I told Troy that I was going to retire, he asked me what I was going to do, and I told him that I was thinking about that, and he asked me what I was passionate about, and I told him that I was passionate about Eckard Enterprises and what they had done for me personally as an investor, how they had taken care of me and my family, and what they had offered me as in the asset class. But not only that, but in the relationship that we developed. So he told me, said, "Hey, we'll work it out." So he offered me the position to come and join the team. I know what the asset class can do for us as investors. I know the horizon of where Eckard Enterprises go, the 10-year plan to be a multi-billion dollar company, to accumulate assets that together we can own debt free, and put all those assets together where we can go in and make tremendous wealth, and then have that opportunity to do that and then invest alongside with hundreds and thousands of other investors to bring our capital together and go buy assets that we would not have any access to individually.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So let's start with the oil and gas working interests. Can you explain how these work for investors and basically why the IRS allows such significant upfront deductions with the intangible drilling costs and the tangible drilling costs? And there's a tax code. Let's be fancy. I am an tax accountant, so I like to say the IRC section 263, but really it's the IDC. People, if you've heard of IDC, that's the intangible drilling cost. So can you talk to us a little bit about what an intangible drilling cost is versus a tangible drilling cost, and how that really helps in an oil and gas working interest?
Absolutely. So I like to talk about oil and gas in two different buckets. Okay. There's a passive income bucket, and then there's an active income bucket. All right. Oil and gas working interest is the direct participation. Your money is active and at risk in the investment. For that, the government gives us tremendous tax advantages. Now, let's back up and see, where did that come from? Back in the 80s, oil and gas in the United States was on a decline. We were running out of oil and gas in the 1980s. We were around 3 to 4 million barrels a day being produced from a high of around 12 million barrels of oil. We were in trouble. So in the Reagan administration and in previous administrations, they look, how do we spur the economy? How do we get investors involved? Because the oil companies need the capital to go out there and harvest that resource that we have such an abundance of here in the United States. So they wrote in the tax code, all right, as a working interest participant has your money at risk, you get to have tax advantages that affect you at your active income level, your W-2 income, and then also and how you can use those different write-offs like the IDCs, intangible drilling costs. All right. What is intangible? Intangible is something that you can't reuse. Once you use it, it's gone. Okay. Labor, fuel for the engines, the fluids that you use to go in and drill the oil, the sand that you frack with it's down in there. Those are all what we call intangible drilling costs. Tangibles is stuff like the equipment, the motors, the stuff that can be reused at some point in time. This is what's great about the opportunity today. With a new tax bill that the Congress just passed, they took intangibles and combined it. All right. Not so much in what it is, but they combined the tax implication for us. Previously, intangibles where you could write off 100%, but the tangibles you had to depreciate. Now we have accelerated depreciation. You can now join that and write both of those off in an accelerated depreciation fashion and really create a tax savings for us because what's the one thing that erodes our net worth the most? Taxes.
Mhm.
So I know we're going to talk a lot about taxes in this interview, but what I want to stress is do not let the tax tail wag the dog. We are about making money. Make money first, then use the tools that you have in your investments and what the government gives you and how you structure yourself to now mitigate those taxes and defer them down the road.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Because a lot of times people are always looking for the deduction. I mean, I literally had a client that was having a financial crisis to the point where they actually leveraged their receivables so that they could get some working capital for their business. It wasn't oil and gas. It was a solar business actually. And
Mhm.
they were having money pulled out every single week of anything they collected. This company was taking a certain percentage to pay it back. It was like kind of how their loan was set up. And they went out and bought a solar or a electric vehicle. It was BMW. This is maybe 10, 15 years ago. Whenever the new BMW first came out with the electric vehicle. And they spent a huge amount of money because they were going to get this tax deduction. And it's like, well, if you didn't spend the money on that vehicle, you would have that much more money sitting in your bank. Now you're going to have a payment. You're going to have, the money they put down at the payment for it, all the infrastructure they had to put in for the charging, all these different things. So he could drive around in this car. And it's like, listen, let's get your business running smoothly. Let's get let's get money in the bank. Let's get your bills paid. Let's not have to leverage your receivables for your income. Let's be able to really get your business running well. And then you can start buying other things like that. But I love what you're talking about. Let's talk about how it makes money. Yeah, it's great that we have these tax deductions. In fact, for my high income clients, I recommend these working interest investments because they can offset your W-2 income in the first few years because that's when you're going to have these huge costs. Now that we've got 100% bonus, everything's coming out in the first year. So to me, my next question is, all right, well, so we write off all these things and you get this huge deduction and it reduces your W-2 income. Therefore, your taxable income is less. Therefore, all that withholding on your W-2 on a higher income, you're going to get a nice refund because you're not going to need all that withholding to pay your taxes because you're reducing your taxable income with the deductions that you're going to get with the working interest in the first year. So when we say the first few years, a lot of times that's because, we might not have 100% bonus. And so therefore our depreciation takes a few years to cycle through to the end. So to me, I want to know, and I'm sure my audience will feel the same, what risks and rewards should an investor understand before they're stepping into a $100,000 minimum investment into a working capital interest or a working capital interest.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I want to talk about is a loss, okay? Where you can deduct expenses and losses against your active income. And then I want to talk about a deduction and what that is. A loss is just something the best way to lose your money and get a tax deduction, go out, set $1 million on fire in the parking lot, and it's gone. You are at a 100% loss that you can write off on your taxes. A tax deferment is a plan, right? And in that type of strategies that you have to make a plan for your net worth and how you're going to mitigate those taxes to increase your net worth, you got to have the plan. All right. Now, in working interest, what's the main risk is that you're 100% liable for the construction and the development of that working interest well. Okay. I like to equate it to people that kind of relate to doing a fix and flip. You buy a property, you fix it up, you spend a lot of money, and then you put it to work, either through renting it or doing a flip on the property. You're doing the same thing in a working interest. The operator's going out there and drilling it. You're going to be responsible for your pro rata share of the gains and the pro rata share of the expenses. All right. There's a budget that you're always given in a working interest investment. You're going to be liable for that pro rata budget. All right. Another risk is, here we are, we're talking about alternative assets, and we always got to say you're at risk of losing 100% of your money, blah, 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 and cover all the legalese stuff. The rewards are the fact that you have now started a journey to grow your net worth, use a tool that the government gives you to save 37% of that capital and put it to work. The first time I wrote a check to the government for over 6 figures, I think I threw up about 5 times. If I didn't know this strategies and these opportunities that the government gave us through investing in working interest and then able to then invest year after year after year as I am a high net worth earner, and then compounding that by taking the income from that well and adding it to my planned investment the second year. So let's just take your example of $100,000 investment. I invest $100,000 the first year. I get to write off as a high net worth earner 37% of that against my adjusted gross the day I write the check. So I have made a 37% return because that's money I would have given to the government and I would have got zero return. I'd have spent it on some stupid program that Doge comes out and fixes up. And we won't go into the political aspect of where our money goes, but there's no return. So this gives us an opportunity to now say, $37,000 I can now put to work and start to earn income on that and use that to continue the plan and compound and grow my net worth and invest year and year and year again. So think about this. The reward. First year, I do $100,000 investment. I've taken $37,000 off my taxes. All right. That gives me an opportunity to now use that money to grow. So if you look at it, you only have to be at a 63% return of capital to be broke even because that other 37% would have gone to the government. So that gives us a great thing. Working interest, every operator looks at the quickest return of capital. They are managing, and you saw this when you came up to the wells, they are managing every minute of drilling those well projects because it saves money. One of the things that you and I learned the other day is how much it actually costs per minute. And if they get some of their people to hustle 5 minutes, how much money it saves us and how much money a day saves us. So the opportunity is there to take that working interest, save those deductions, but make a lot of money, add that earning to the next year. So now in the second year, I'm going to do another $100,000 investment. save 37%, put that 37%, $37,000 to work, take the income from year one and add it to my investment. Now I'm truly generating net worth. Okay. And you continue to do that and do that, all the while deferring the taxes down the road.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the people that I met on the field trip, three of them were already investing in this, and they were just, they were looking for doing additional investments. So they'd already, some of them had already been in it a few years. And so if it wasn't working for them, they have plenty of money to invest in other things. So to know that they were literally continuing to invest. And then we also talked about, and we'll segue into our next subject. But when you're in the working interest in a well, it also behooves you to purchase the mineral rights for that same exact operation. And so that's how you have your 42 mineral rights, and then you've got your 9 working interests. And there were other people that were part of this field trip that were doing the same thing. And I even looked at a spreadsheet from one of the guys when we got back, because being a tax person, people will share this kind of information and not think twice about it, where someone might not everybody can get that information, but it was great information for me to see because he showed all the wells that he had mineral interest in, and then what he put into it, what it got appraised for, and what his return was, what his costs were. And there is a cost when you're in mineral rights only if when it's a tax strategy. I'll just throw it out there. You have a tax strategy. I have clients that have retirement accounts, money in stale, previous employer, stale retirement, traditional. And so, what's the thing that we always want to do? We always want to chunk the traditional over to a Roth so that you don't pay taxes on the growth. When you withdraw the money, it's like an ATM machine. So there's no taxes on the growth, and then there's no taxes on when you pull the money out because you're putting money into a Roth after tax. So what I do with my clients is I say, all right, do you have any stale retirement? And then I explain about the mineral rights that we can do. Because when you say you put $50,000 in mineral rights, and then you get it appraised in the first month or two, it's going to appraise low. And I'm going to ask you to explain why. But it appraises low, and so that's the fair market value. Then we take that low appraisal and we submit it to our retirement company, the like directed IRA, and the custodian for your account, and then they value it at the fair market value, and then we roll it over into the Roth. So I had a client that had 50,000. They had it appraised at 26,000, and we rolled it into the Roth. They saved money immediately right out the door on that investment because they're not going to pay tax on that difference. So to me, that's, it's a $24,000 non-taxable event out of $50,000. Normally, if you wanted to move it into the Roth, you'd pay tax on the 50 to chunk it over. Well, they only had to pay tax on 26 of it. So 24 of it just evaporates. Now, once it's in the Roth and the well starts producing, the mineral rights are flowing, then you're going to the value goes back up and more, and then you're getting your royalties every month. So it's a beautiful way to move money from traditional into the Roth, and then you're building an asset that you'll have into perpetuity. I mean, you could put that as part of your estate, and then your family and your family's family, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, they'll all benefit from it. So this is about the mineral rights investment. So we have the working interest we talked about. Now we're going to talk about the mineral rights investment. And so Eckard offers those mineral right acquisitions. And so we often purchase those inside a retirement account, as I spoke about. But can you just explain how mineral rights differ from the working interest in terms of risk and return? And I already went through the tax treatment, but if you want to pop that in there as well, that'd be great.
Sure, sure. Now you're getting to the point where I really get excited. Over as a high income earner, I wanted to know what I do with that money. Okay. Now that I've earned it, I've generated wealth. How do I hold it? Okay. And back in the 90s, and when a lot of education came out for people that would know where that education came out, there were some people that started to talk about generate your money in business, hold your money in real estate. Okay. So as a real estate investor, what do we want to look for? We want passive income. Mineral rights is real property, real estate. It is real estate underneath the ground. So it's a different bucket. Now, in the whole picture of the revenue from a well, you have 75% of the revenue goes to the working interest side. It's called a net royalty interest, 75% of the overall revenue. The other 25%, 20 to 25% of that goes to the royalty owners, right? The mineral rights owners or the override owners. Generally, there's always a little bit of carve out on the revenue from the well to pay for things like the geologist or pay for things like the construction company that came out and did a drill site. And that's how they make their money. But as a royalty owner, now I'm in this bucket of 20 to 25% of the revenue that comes to me, no expenses, no liability, and capital preservation. Okay. As a mineral rights owner, all the construction, all the liability, all the expenses are on the shoulders of the operator. For me as a mineral rights owner, I'm the landlord. I contractually have a lease with a multi-billion dollar company that says, for the right for us to drill that well, we will pay you a royalty for every drop of oil and gas we extract out of from your reservoirs. All right. So as a mineral rights owner, I'm literally in a commercial real estate type of structure with that. I'm the landlord. I'm above bankruptcy according to federal and state law. I have no obligations as far as expenses on the operational side. So I'm just straight cash flow. I don't have any liability. I'm not exposed to expenses. I'm just there collecting that royalty passively because I don't do anything. The biggest I like to make a joke on this, so please excuse me if it's a little corny, but the biggest way, the biggest worry that I have as a mineral rights owner is the paper cut I get when I open up the check. All right. Now, all joking aside,
I like
what
that joke.
yeah, what do mineral rights offer me? It puts me in a very passive position where I am now have preservation of capital. And why do I have preservation of capital? Because I own all of the oil and gas underneath that ground where I buy those mineral rights. I'll do Oklahoma, for instance. Oklahoma is separated in sections. Okay. Generally, a well is drilled across two sections. You and I visited those sections and we talked to the operators about how they're going into the other section and bending that pipe and getting into the section where our pay is. As a mineral rights owner, I just have to have a footprint in one of those two sections, and I get my pro rata share of all the production that comes from those wells that are on my property. So what I like is we always buy mineral rights with a vintage well. I'm making money day one. It has a contractual lease that Eckard could go in and analyze. We can also get all the data from that well to do a projection of what the reserves are. We can engineer out what our cash flow will be if we drilled additional wells. There's also, you saw it. I mean, how many wells did we pass when we went up there? Just well after well after well. And it was pretty neat, wasn't it? There wasn't
Oh,
like this big thing where you thought it was a huge environmental disturbance. It was a little pad site that covered over an acre. And at the end of the time the thing's drilled, there's this little pipe sticking up with some tanks and a gas pipeline going out. So as a mineral rights owner, I want to look at that because I want to preserve my capital there. But I have the upside because what I want as a mineral rights owner, I want them to stick it like a pincushion, put as many wells on that property as you can because I get paid on the production. I get royalties on the production side.
yeah. Well, I was really impressed with the way environmentally what these look like. I mean, it was just like a little asphalt area, like you said, a couple tanks on it, a little pipe that stuck up. It's not like well, we did pass quite a few that were the old fashioned, the pump jacks or whatever you call those. We did see some of the older things, but the
Yeah. The
technology
old
has
vertical
changed.
wells. Yeah.
Technology has changed so much from back then. Now we've got the horizontal drilling. So
Yeah.
instead of just, he could probably hit this as a topic to talk about how, 5, 10, 15 years ago and before that, you always hear the story, they drilled a well and and there was nothing there, and he spent all this
Dry
money
hole.
we
Yep.
lost, and
Yep.
because they were just drilling straight down. If you didn't hit the right spot, that's it, you're all bondy gosh, you got to go start over again somewhere else. And so it's really hard for investors to sit there and want to keep putting money into something because they lose their money. But now with the directional drilling, when we were talking with the guys on the site, they were saying, okay, so they drill this well and they run one line goes, 2 miles out this way, another one goes out towards the back and then turns around and then comes back
Mhm.
in, and another one goes this direction. And so it was really neat to hear how the geologists map all of this out with the directional drillers and the MWD operators, and then really making sure that they get access to as much of the mineral rights as possible. And who knew that you could be doing this with the technology that they have? But it's getting
Absolutely.
better and better. And as you explained before, we could touch on this,
Yeah.
that even 5 years ago, you weren't making as much or pulling as much out as you are now because of the technological advances.
Exactly, exactly. I'll just tell you a little bit about, the history of drilling oil and gas. And everybody thinks about that picture of that pump jack out there going up and down, pulling the oil and gas out of thing. Those are vertical wells. Vertical wells, think about this. You have an 8-inch pipe, you're drilling it down into the ground 10,000 feet, and you're trying to hit a plate size where you think the reservoir is, and you got geologists, they sit to hit 3D seismic and everything. That's a risky endeavor because a deviation of what they say, 2 degrees, could put you off 300, 400, 500 feet and you miss the reservoir. With the horizontal drilling today, what was one of the most impressive things that they told you about there on that drilling site? How deep they're going down, how they can turn the pipe, go exactly into the pay layer. So let's talk about pay layers. Pay layers are geological events where the hydrocarbons, the plants and animals, were laid down in different sedimentary layers. Okay, and that's what we talk about. Multiple pay layers is where we like to invest in oil and gas because you have a Woodford pay layer, you have a Mississippian pay layer, you have a Oswego sands, and these pay layers are technically recoverable today. So we'll talk about now we drill down, we land in that pay layer, and then usually that well will now go out in that pay layer for 1 to 2 to 3 miles. Matter of fact, there was a company that just drilled a 4 mile lateral well, and they did it in record time. So the actual technology that has come into this game, it's no longer what chance do we have of hitting a dry well. It's now about how much oil and gas are we actually going to get out of here, and how can we be so precise, so technologically advanced that we're in that pay zone 90 to 95% of the time, so we have access to that entire reservoir. This is one of the things that really, really impressed me and that I didn't know about oil and gas, and why I say mineral rights is a preservation of capital. Under each one of those mile by mile squares, 640 acres, if I own 50 acres, I get my pro rata share of 25 to 50 million barrels of oil that is underground there. These wells today are absolutely incredible. They are recovering at the oil and gas at about between 300 to 700 to a million BOE on some of these wells. As a mineral rights owner, that's great for me because I get paid on the production. Now, the great thing about that is when I started investing in 2020, those wells and that technology back then, they were in the pay zone about 75% of the time. They had already gotten really, really good at staying in the pay zone, but today they are really, I mean, it is a technological revolution. The other aspect that I really like about that is that they're so precise with how they frack these wells now and where they go in there. And they're taking all of these samples of the reservoir as they drill through, where they can now directly pinpoint in that well where they want to frack it for the most recovery. 5 years ago, they were fracking every 1,000 feet. Today, they're fracking every 100 feet. 5, 10 years ago, they used 12,000 pounds of sand. Today, they're using 50,000 pounds of sand and water to frack that rock so that it gives a path for the oil and gas to be extracted. The biggest thing about it is, and why I say that I hold my wealth in mineral rights, is because of that reservoir. Do you remember how much oil and gas they told us they were extracting out of that reservoir today, and all the money that's made on that reservoir? Do you remember that percentage that they said they're extracting?
I don't remember the exact percentage, but I remember us talking about that, and I was just blown away. And I was having FOMO to the max. I mean, I literally was
Exactly.
like, "Oh my gosh, why
Exactly.
did I not know about this 5 years ago?"
They are extracting somewhere between 8 to 12 to 15% of the reservoir, and they're making a ton of money at it. But that leaves 80 to 90% of the oil and gas in the ground. With technology, we're going back in and we're what is called re-stimulating old wells. As a mineral rights owner, that's great for me because I may have had this great flush production in my mineral rights, and it's gone down and it's gone to where it's going to pay me now for the next 25 to 50 years. But guess what? Technology comes in. The operator goes back into the wells, they re-stimulate it, and all of a sudden my production goes from 50 barrels a day back up to 200 or 300 barrels a day. Now I've had another episode of where I'm getting tremendous royalties off that gas. Guess what? I didn't pay for it. I wasn't responsible for going down to do that. The operator did that. I just get the benefit of being aligned with some of the most intelligent, efficient, multi-billion dollar companies in the world. The United States has the best oil drillers in the world. Saudi Arabia, Russia, Afghanistan, all these places that have in the Middle East have these great oil reserves. They choose us to help them come get that. So in this country, we have such a resource. The Texas and Permian Basin, the Saudi Arabia of the United States, the Anadarko Basin, 4 to 500,000 of acres of oil and gas in the ground. We're going to go get it. So that's why we invest in mineral rights.
And that's why Troy was saying, and you as well, that when you have the working interest, get the mineral rights for that as well. Because
Exactly.
because once they're done drilling and they move on, they'll still come back and like you said, kind of go back and regurgitate what was being done already and make it more productive again. So,
Exactly. Well, think about this. We talked about the capital stack of that well. You know, as a working interest participant, I get somewhere between 75 to percent of that revenue. I want to own mineral rights because I get the other 20%.
mhm, yeah.
So I double dip on the revenue cycle. Now, what's the risk of mineral rights? Right? The risk is timing. When is that oil and gas company going to come in and drill my wells? That's what we do. We do our research. Our geologists know where the oil and gas is and where the tier one reservoirs are. Our petro engineers know how much we can expect to, to recover out of that basin. We know where the companies are. It's pretty easy. It's follow the rigs. We know where they're putting infrastructure. We know where they're putting in, pipelines to extract it, take the gas to offset it. We know where they're laying power lines. We know where their water's coming from. So it's an incredible, incredible thing to see how you can extract opportunities for us to go in there. Now, you don't want to go in and buy mineral rights that are way, way out and they haven't drilled a well there in 50 years. You don't want to own those mineral rights. You want to own the mineral rights like I said, where the rigs are active
Yeah.
in the
Well,
tier one spots.
and
You
that's
want
what
to
I
talk a
was,
little bit about strategy now?
yeah, yeah,
All
I
right.
do.
All right. So you talked about the valuations and as far as the oil and gas is concerned and how owning mineral rights is so advantageous for those that have a traditional IRA. You talked about the appraisal. So you buy a asset at fair market value. You take into account the cash flow that's coming from it. You take into account the activation that's coming in it. You take into account the reserves that are in the ground. And you take into account the upside of your investment. When mineral rights get valued by a third party engineer, they don't look at that. They give you bank value. What can the bank book today? And the banks can only book cash flow. So you have these old vintage wells that are in a lower cycle of their cash flow. They're pumping along, they're making money every day doing that. You have these new flush production wells that are going to be drilled, but they don't take that into consideration. So I get a valuation off a very low cash flow basis, what a bank can book on their balance sheet. All right. That sets my basis, my tax basis for what I transfer from the IRA to the Roth. Okay. I'll just tell you a case study of one of my friends. She bought a $250,000 mineral rights investment that is kicking off around 10 to 11% return. She had it valued before a lot of activation come on it. So she got a bank value of $67,000. That's what she paid taxes on. So she did that Roth transfer. The next year, there's a fair market valuation. So now you get the fair market of the reserves in the ground, the permits, the drilled uncompleted wells, everything that made that investment when you originally bought it. So now you get a fair market value. So she literally transferred $250,000 out of her IRA with an asset that's going to produce income for the next 50 to 100 years and got that into her Roth. All of that revenue is now going to come to her as a tax-free event. So she used pre-taxed money to get into the IRA and save the taxes there, got it valued to get it over to a Roth and appraised at the lowest tax basis that she possibly could. She got it into the Roth, and now the fair market value is there. So she has her equity value, and now it's going to produce cash flow for generations.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly. I mean,
this
she
is one
got
of the
the,
great things she did also. So
okay.
she cash basis of $67,000. That hits you on your active income because they're taxing you on the money that you originally pushed in there. So it hits you at adjusted gross. She bought working interest and covered the tax obligation. She transferred $250,000 from an IRA to a Roth for zero tax liability.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's how you generate wealth.
But you have to, if you're in it for the long haul, though, this isn't like some people go into crypto and they've waited a long time and now it's really making money. Other people go in crypto in and out and they're cashing out quickly. Same thing with stocks. Some people just put it in there. They do dollar cost averaging, leave it in for their whole life basically, and when they're ready to retire, hoping it grew. Other people will play the stock market. And they're buying and selling all the time. And there's different strategies. But with oil and gas, it sounds like to me, especially with mineral rights, that's something you're going to buy and you're going to hold it. Yes, you can sell it. You were telling me there's a secondary market, the peer-to-peer sale for people that want to sell their mineral rights. They want to get the cash out. And so you can pick up mineral rights for less than what you would buy if we just invested originally in a mineral rights package. But they're missing out on the additional drilling and the other things that you can do as you start, 3 years, 5 years down the road, 6 years, 10 years down the road. There's different things
Absolutely.
that are being done, especially with technology advancements and things, and
Exactly.
they're going to miss out on that. So I
Think
always tell
about it.
people, buy it and leave it for your great grandkids and,
Absolutely.
and your great great grandkids, because this is the you have like 10 floors underneath the ground.
It's
And
a generational
mm,
asset. It
it
truly is a
is.
generational asset. Think
Mhm.
about this in the mineral rights. The mineral rights that I buy today, I'm going to make a healthy return. I'm going to make great revenue. I'm going to preserve my wealth. I'm going to pass that generational asset down to my heirs. Their grandkids will be getting mineral rights royalties off of what I'm setting up today.
Mm.
That's amazing. I told you the story about the old uh, um, uh, farmer that was out in Texas, had this huge ranch, 37,000 acres, and that ranch still had the rights to the mineral rights underneath that. And I met him at this oil and gas show down in Houston. And, he's in it well into his 80s. And he was like, he looked at me and said, son, you always invest in mineral rights. And I was like, all right, sir, I appreciate that. I really love this asset class. Tell me why I always invest in mineral rights. He said, because mineral rights will be around forever, and there's so much oil and gas in the ground that you'll be paying your kids and their kids will be getting royalties from it. He goes, Exxon offered me $12 billion or $2 billion for the mineral rights that are underneath my ranch, my 37,000 acres. And I told him to go jump in a lake. And I said, well, why did you do that? $2 billion is pretty impressive. And he said, because from the royalty aspects of it, I'll make $11 billion. So that's why mineral rights is fundamental investing. Today, one of the things that happened with the dot-com and everybody got into how do I get in? How do I get out? How do I get in? How do I get out? The richest investor in the world owns 52 stocks and doesn't trade out of stocks on a daily basis. So it's about fundamental investing. It's about what I get today, but what is the true value tomorrow? So for every dollar that I invest in mineral rights, I control somewhere between $5 and $7 of product. All right. They're just going to go get it. All right. I need them to go get it. I need them to drill more wells, put more wells on my mineral rights. When I first started, it's about 1 to 3. In 5 or 10 years, when the commodity price, which is inflation hedged, goes up, I may owe 1 to 12. Why would I sell that when I have such an upside on 25 to 50 million barrels of oil that's in the ground? What I'm looking for technology to do is go in and create a vacuum cleaner to go in there, put on those wells and suck it out of the ground as much as they can.
No, that's the way. That's what we're trying to do as investors is we're trying to give our money a job. So you've worked hard, like you were saying earlier, you've built your businesses, you've got your money from that, and now you're investing it to build that passive income because you're no longer running your business. I mean, you've got a 48% or 52%, I guess, ownership in it. So that's kind of passive now because you're not working the business, but you're getting the money from the business as the person who, the main owner of the business, the main investor of the business. But now your assets, instead of spending money on taxes, you're saving that money and you're putting more and more into your mineral rights and into your working interests. So you're giving your money a job. So why would you fire your investment? Why would you want to take
Exactly.
that out if it's going to continue working and growing? And so
Exactly.
the long-term viewpoint is the key. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, there are certain types of investments that you're going to do that you can, take out money, like if you're doing promissory notes and things like that, you're getting your interest and you want to pull it back out. That's great. And you're like recycling. But when it comes to the mineral rights, you don't want to recycle. You want to just buy and hold.
And
And so
hold.
that brings
Absolutely.
me into the next opportunity that you have at Eckard. And there's other ways to do it as well. But Eckard
Sure.
has a promissory note and lending opportunity. So in addition to the oil and gas, you with this opportunity, uh, you're gonna earn interest, and especially if it's in a retirement account. I mean, that would be even better because then it's never going to get taxed. But even if it's outside of a retirement account or inside a retirement account, you're still going to earn interest on the promissory note and the lending opportunity. So can you just explain how these work and the typical terms that are used and what kind of investor that they're suited for?
Sure. Sure. Can I finish up one little point on the mineral rights before we
Oh,
move?
absolutely. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just got all
Nope, nope,
excited because I
absolutely.
was like,
It kind
oh,
of ties into it.
okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When I first started investing in mineral rights, I was selling my oil and gas at $35 a barrel oil. In 5 years, I've had a double in commodity prices. All right. So the oil and gas that I sold in a lot of my packages in my mineral rights portfolio was sold and I made a great return. But today, they're going in and drilling wells on those same mineral rights with better technology, more recovery of the resource at a higher commodity price. That is what the upside is for me. And that goes into how do we get more of this asset? All right. Eckerd puts They understand that our partners have capital that they may not want to deploy right yet, but yet they want a great return. So in the promissory notes, our investors lend Eckerd the money to now go out and we can go buy immature mineral rights that are probably going to mature in the next 3 to 4 years, and we can buy them at really, really, really great prices. How do you make money in investing? You buy right. You buy when the asset is cost effective. You make your money on the buy side. Eckerd, we need a deal flow. We need to be able to have money, go out and buy that, and then recycle that money as quickly as possible. So that's where the promissory notes come in. For the right to use your money, we give a very, very handsome offering of 3-year notes. Some are usually whatever, some are 2 years, some are 3 years. You have a hold period, and we give you somewhere between probably a 10% return and as much as 12% return. So our notes are very, very valuable. Eckerd doesn't want to go to a bank and borrow that money to make that cycle engine run. We'd rather do it with our investors. We'd rather give that money to our investors. And this is really, really exciting. We've had investors that have used promissory notes where they parked a tremendous amount of cash. They got interest from the promissory note. They took the interest and invested into mineral rights. So Eckerd was literally buying their mineral rights from the interest that they got off the promissory note.
I love it.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's my brain is spinning because we didn't talk about this when I was out there, the promissory note. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we covered it when we had our podcast together. That is fantastic. So basically, they're parlaying they gave their money a job, the promissory note, they're getting the interest, and then because it's such a large amount that they're putting in the promissory notes, they're getting large amounts of interest, and they're able to easily buy the mineral rights because the minimum mineral rights package is 25,000, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, and if they're doing that over and over and over again, if you're a savvy business person and you're an investor, you're paying attention to these things. You're not going to make the same mistake twice. So if you're continually doing the same type of things, it's because you believe in it and it's working for you. So
Absolutely.
those are the things that I took away when I came back from our field trip was, these people are continually doing it. It's not like they did it once, one and done, and just like, oh, that was really good. I made a lot of money. Or, wow, that was a huge waste of my money. That was a mistake. I'm not doing that again. It was like, no, we like this and we're going to continue.
Yep.
And this just gives another opportunity for them to put their money to work and then utilize what they earn from that to be able to continue growing their portfolio with the mineral
Absolutely.
rights. That's
Absolutely. And
that's
that and that
incredible.
that goes back to the fiduciary responsibility of Eckerd. You know,
Mm.
we want to make our investors, and we call them partners not because we're a GP-LP relationship. We're in a partnership where you and I take our capital along with Eckerd and we combine it and we go out there and buy assets that we would not be able to, and we're stronger together than we are separate. Right. And that's one of the fundamental things that really, really impressed me about the company, about the way they do business. It's about everybody being able to work together and go out there and buy assets that will make tremendous amounts of income for us. And we keep growing it. So we want investors that see a plan. We want investors that want to be contrarian. They look to buy assets when it's the right time to buy them. They want to get out there. They don't want to use leverage to go in and buy these assets. They want to hold their wealth. They want to use strategies to continue to build and build and build and grow their net worth and have a plan of where we see the opportunities going, where in the next 5 to 10 years, Eckerd will have $10 billion under asset management. I want to talk to you about some statistics that just came out. As you know, our mineral rights always distribute on the 25th of every month. All right.
Right.
We just are this close to having $200 million out to our investors in the last 5 years. It's the
Oh,
money out
goodness.
the door. One of the goals that Troy put together, and when he started to develop this strategy with mineral rights, he wanted to have $250 million under management in 5 years. He wanted to have about 25,000 acres of producing mineral rights, and he wanted to have about 1,000 investors that were side by side with him. In 5 years, we're now at just over 1 billion under management in assets. We have 2,500 investors. We have almost 80,000 net mineral acres now today. And we have just are going to be on the cusp of surpassing $200 million out to our investors. And in 2025, we'll have somewhere close to, I think, somewhere around 70 to $75 million out the door. We will distribute to our investors more money than other sponsors can raise for their investments.
Well, I think Troy was saying, if I remember correctly, he wants to, over the next 3 years, give $1 billion back to his investors. A
That's
billion.
the next 5 year goal.
Yeah.
That's the next
Was
five-year
it
goal.
3 or 5? 5 years? I mean, that's huge. I mean,
It
just look
is.
at
It
you.
is.
You
Think about it.
quadrupled, you quadrupled the numbers that you were projecting.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
now you're
Yeah,
you're you're wanting to be even more going forward. And I believe that Troy will manifest that. And he's surrounding himself with the right people. He's surrounding himself with the right people in his company itself, the right
absolutely.
geologists, the right financial people, the right sales and marketing people. He's giving opportunities for investors to do so many different things with his company so that he can bring in more investment money to be able to continue growing what his assets are. And the more that he grows, the less his costs are because, he's scaling. And then he can give more back to his investors, which I think is fantastic. So we've talked about the working interest. We've talked about the mineral rights. We've talked about the note investing. Now I want to just touch briefly on the pipelines, the fabrication, and one of my favorite subject matters, which I'm blown away by, and I'm actually becoming a study for this because I really want to work on this with my clients. And I want to, be out there for other people that are doing the 1031 exchanges because I want to be an expert in this field because I think it's fantastic. It's a way to keep Uncle Sam from dipping into your pocket as you're growing and investing, and you're just continually, you know, you're selling and then converting, selling and converting, moving things into other assets. And the 1031 exchange is just amazing to me. We're not taught these things in school. So I have to learn it from you guys. You're the experts in this area, and I'm so grateful to know you because I can pick your brains on this,
Yeah.
and that makes me be better at what I'm doing with my clients. But I would want you to just touch on a little bit so that we can just be exposed to this because I know it's an area that Eckard is growing in is the 1031 exchanges. And the more research that I do on it, the more I just keep thinking which clients are going to benefit from this the most. And how do we get this information in front of them so that they can participate and they can make their money on this and really grow their assets because of these 1031 exchanges.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So let's talk about, how Eckerd understands where oil and gas is going to be drilled and also about where people are going to go and where I might want to do uh, um, the investments and where we want to buy our mineral rights. Royal Fabrication is an oil and gas company. We produce the tanks that the oil and gas companies use. So you can see the insight that we get because we know where we're going to be delivering them. So it gives us an opportunity by having the wealth of, foresight, where we want to follow the rigs, our geologists and petro engineers and our division order and our landmen all worked for these companies, and we have a great aptitude to where we're going to be able to make the most money in that thing. Now, I told you about, we've been talking about what we call upstream. Okay. That's the production of the oil and gas. The pipeline is what we call midstream. All right. It's getting those molecules to a place where now they can process and develop and sit it on down to what we call downstream, which is where it comes to you and I as gasoline and propane and all those kind of things. Eckard Enterprises owns the second largest pipeline in the Gulf of Mexico. All right. So we understand what that is. So basically all it is, it's the toll road that the gas gets transported on. And for that, we get get revenue from. So we're looking at all aspects of the industry and how can we strategically place ourselves to make the most money from the asset. That's a plan. That's why I love so much and why I'm so excited about where Eckerd's going to go. We know what the oil and gas industry offers us through our strategies and assets that we buy, but we also have a plan for the future. Build this incredible company with assets under management, not just in drilling, not just in mineral rights, but also in midstream.
Yeah, that's definitely some good foresight because I'm sure it took you a lot of time or for Eckerd to be able to build their company up to a point where they can actually afford it. Because I would imagine that the pipelines are extremely expensive and it's something that you don't just do out the gate. You have to build yourself up to that. So Troy must have been planning this for a long time before it actually started coming to fruition, and now it's here. Do you see future pipelines investments for the company going forward, or is it just in the
Absolutely.
Gulf of Mexico, just
Absolutely.
that one?
Absolutely. So one of the things about investing into Texas and Oklahoma is the fact that you have infrastructure. All right. Think about this. We got Mr. Pipeline owner that goes in there and says, hey, there's a toll for you to go in there where we're doing our own drilling and we have our mineral rights and we get in and they put that gas into the pipeline. That guy maybe have a pipeline that's 8 inches and it's old plastic pipeline and they can't take any more gas. We go in and run a secondary pipeline that now goes down through there, and we do it in steel, and we can add more gas and add more volume because we can pressurize it and get more things. So what that gives is the operators, not only just Eckard Enterprises as an operator, but also the other operators, an avenue to offtake their gas. That we're creating a pathway that is a hurdle for more activation. Guess where we lay pipelines? Where we own minerals. Hey, Mr. Oil and Gas Company, would you like to now have a life of lease contract to put your gas in there because we want to help you guys make business and make money? We want to be an advantageous partner to you. We'll give you this thing, but and by giving you such a great deal on the transport and the tariff that you're going to that gets charged for your gas, we would like for you to activate these minerals. What did I talk about was the number one risk of minerals? Timing. Eckerd drills on their own minerals, and Eckerd has a pathway for have other operators to drill our minerals also.
So
It's all about,
you're getting
it's all
the
about the plan.
right. So you're having other companies come in once you're laying the pipeline, and so that just makes it a sweeter deal for them. So then they're like, well, gosh, the pipeline's already there. Let's let us drill here. And then
Absolutely.
because you've got the mineral rights, now you're going to get a piece of that pie of this other drilling, and you didn't have to
Yeah.
spend the money to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Am
It's
I
all
remember? Am
about
I?
getting our minerals activated quicker. It's
Yeah.
all about that's the plan. Get our minerals activated quicker. The timing. We're looking at the number one operators in the world, but there's a lot of acreage out there. Okay. We don't control where they're going to drill. We have a great avenue to where they're going to drill. Now we're creating the opportunity for them to drill.
Yeah, that's incredible. That was really smart. So now what is the fabrication? Is that the tanks that you're talking about? The
Yeah,
storage
that's the
tanks?
takes that we're doing that. That's a company that Troy Eckard owns and some of our suite managers, our CEO, they have that opportunity up there in that. So it's been really great. We went up to see the opportunity there. And that's kind of what happened a few years ago where Troy really started to see the opportunity that came into the oil and gas industry. When they had that fabrication company, they were selling 30, 40, 50 tanks a month. Then all of a sudden the tanks went down. The orders started going down. Capital started being pulled out of the market for the oil and gas drill operators through not getting financing, not getting that. gives us an opportunity for high net worth individuals to now join a little bit easier because there's a capital vacuum for us. All right. What does that give us? That gives us the opportunity where a mineral rights owner now is like, uh-oh, I'm not getting enough activation. I need to sell something because I have a mortgage and I got to pay for this tractor. Eckard comes along and says, hey, we offer you a fair value for your mineral rights. We get great assets that are bought at the right time, and the pendulum swings. All right. Now we have an asset. It's just the same way. I buy a property, not in downtown Dallas, but I go out into Allen and I buy a property there and I get it developed. All right. If I'd have bought a property in Allen, Texas 5 years ago, my rent would have been $1,000 a month. Today, I can sell it for $2,000 a month on my rent. So it's that type of structure that we're building to get those assets at the greatest value, have them mature, and then produce income for the next 25, 50, 100 years.
Well, and you're not doing it in a selfish way either. You're bringing in investors, and then the people that own the property that you're putting these on, they're getting lease payments too. So you're helping the people that maybe have been in a very rural area before, and
Absolutely.
now they're able to, that's passive income for them. And so to me, it's as I always talk about, it's finding ways to make money, but helping other people along the way. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's
Hmm.
about a culture. It's about a win, a win, and a win. All
Yeah.
right.
I think
It's
that's,
really, really true about that, and that's the great opportunities that we have today. If you'd like to, I'd like to talk about the 1031 exchange.
yeah,
I've
absolutely.
actually used 1031 exchange to invest in mineral rights. I was a real estate investor. I did not know about oil and gas. I love real estate. What I don't like about real estate now that I'm 57 years old, even though I'm 35 and can, qualify for a 55 and over community. Big joke there. Anyway, I
You're
don't
still
look
young. You're still young.
exactly. So in real estate, you have these cycles of revenue, expenses, vacancies, full tenancy, this and that, up and down, seesaw, 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 to where it's hard to get a steady picture of income. Personally, over all the real estate that I owned, I did not make money inside of the passive income phase because I always was exposed to the liability and to the expense side. Okay. That's where I started learning about mineral rights and how I could use mineral rights where the oil and gas was up and down in the peaks and valleys, and oil and gas has little peaks and valleys based upon a commodity price. I combine that together to make a seesaw where oil and gas is on one side, real estate's on the other, and I can balance it now that I can get a passive income structure monthly where I haven't used earned income in the last 2 to 3 years to pay my monthly expenses. That's what we're going to look for in the passive world of investing. All right. I
Mhm.
saw that, but now I understand, okay, I never refinanced my properties. I didn't refinance until my properties were I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I had such trapped equity inside the real estate. And then the mortgage rates went down, to 2% or whatever during COVID. And then I used that trapped equity to now go in and buy mineral rights. So now I'm building a mineral rights portfolio that there's no liability. I've reduced my real estate holdings to about 25% of what it used to be, using both asset classes to now I'm using, how do I use a 1031 exchange now to continue that cycle? Because as I get older, all I want to do is cash those checks. I want to be on the beach somewhere, going, not worrying about anything. I don't have to worry about my tenants. I don't have to worry about who's going to make a decision on, what bill they pay and if they're going to pay their rent. I don't have to worry about deferred maintenance. I don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. I don't have to worry about the tax consequences if I sell that property, because mineral rights are considered real property. There's a lot of things that people don't understand in 1031s. They think like kind exchange. They think residential real estate for residential real estate. commercial real estate for commercial real estate. Like kind means the fact that it's for business. It's generating income. So you can now use that where you can do into traditional real estate into real estate that's mineral rights and it's directly transferred.
Well, and then also, just from what I've been researching, it depends on what state you're in. Like Texas and Oklahoma are very favorable with the 1031 exchanges for the mineral rights being considered real estate. Um, you have to look at different states and different laws to see where it's beneficial for the investor. But definitely where Eckerd is working, it's totally acceptable. And I'm really impressed with it. You had shared a story with me about one of your investors. I don't know if you could share it on the podcast or if you want to share a different story, but it was a person who had owned some property and it was a business, but part of it was property, part of it was the business. And that they were ready to retire and they had sold it. And what did they do with it? They came and talked with you and did some investing with Eckert. And so I was just wondering, would you be willing to share that story? And if not, is there another story that you can share of an example of a 1031 exchange and that how you've seen how Eckerd helped those investors navigate the 1031 exchange and then how it's
Absolutely.
benefiting them now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
Okay.
share two stories. One's going to be a personal story. I owned a triplex in Philadelphia. My brother's a fireman in Philadelphia and has got 27 years, and that's where we started our real estate career. I owned a triplex up there and made decent income, had appreciation, did all that. But during COVID, that state and then the city, of course, we all know what happened to landlords when they didn't, the tenants didn't have to pay real estate their rent, and then the government would come in and give you assistance and do all that. But in Philadelphia, they made my tenants agree to it. None of my tenants in that triplex agreed for me to get the assistance from the government. So I was 2 years without income. So what I did is I said, that is enough. I had already started my journey into the mineral rights. I took that 1031 exchange. I exchanged the gains into mineral rights for cash flowing assets that I had no liability or expenses. I went ahead and paid the depreciation recapture, and I paid the portion of capital gains on uh, the debt side, and in 4 years, I'm already back to even on everything that I would have changed on there. And I have two packages that have an amazing amount of oil and gas still yet to be infill drilled on some of those mineral tracts acres, so that I'm going past that. And it's more of a passive opportunity for me. So that's one of the assets. This other gentleman worked his whole entire life and had a campground and resort that he had. And he sold that business, worked his life. He's now in his 70s. We were able to 1031 exchange his gains on the real estate side to where now he's making a tremendous passive income. He doesn't have any worries anymore. He's going to look down there in your area of the state to buy a house so that he can now retire. He sits on there and gets passive income for the rest of his life and has set it up to where he now passes it to his heirs. It's incredible, incredible. We've gotten him so much income from his mineral rights acquisitions that now he doesn't have to worry about retirement. He has to have to work as hard as he worked for his entire life. And more power to him. It was such a great story. Worked very hard, amassed this wealth that he has, be able to exchange it, and now he has no worries about income for the rest of his life.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at that situation from a tax perspective. So, because I know people are listening because they want to hear the tax side as well. So here he has properties had for 40 years. He's probably fully depreciated everything, that the beginning, like the buildings and things that he had at the beginning. And then he's got all his land that wasn't depreciated, but he's got all that land allocation. So now he's retiring, and instead of selling his business and paying all his taxes on the gain, and then he's paying, regular ordinary income tax rates on the depreciation recapture because the IRS, for people that don't know what that means, they say, okay, every year that you've got this real estate, you could take a deduction, a certain percentage, for depreciation. So it reduces your taxable income when you take that deduction. So what the IRS says is now when you sell it, now we want our little special deduction that we gave you all these years. Now we want you to pay tax on it because now you got this gain. And so now you need to take part of that gain and not only have capital gain rates on it, but part of it you're going to have ordinary income rates. So if you're at a 37% rate, and the capital gain rate might be 20% or 15%, you're going to be paying the 15 or 20% on part of it, and the other part on the depreciation recapture, you're going to be paying the highest tax rate if you're in that bracket. So when you 1031, you don't have to worry about that because what you do is you take all those gains and all that recapture, it all goes and reduces what you're buying. So say you bought something for you have a gain of $500,000 and then you bought something that was that you could take that extra $500,000 and invest it in there. You don't, it reduces what you bought. So say it was worth $2 million and you had a $500,000 gain. Your value that you're going to depreciate on that new property is going to be 1.5 million because that 500,000 you're going to reduce. So every time you 1031, you reduce what the new purchase is by what you're trying to shield. But if you swap till you drop, if you hold it until you die, whoever gets whatever that asset is, it gets a step up in basis at the time of death or 6 months later. And so nobody pays the capital gains, nobody pays the recaptured depreciation. Now, if you sold anything before you died, you're going to sell it for the fair market value and your basis is super low because you've been eating away at that basis. So we say swap till you drop. We want you to hold it as long as you can, but since it's mineral rights, we're holding it anyway. It's a long-term investment. So this person is going to be getting those royalties every single month for the rest of their life. And when what you were explaining to me with the amount, it was significant.
It was
And,
very
I mean,
significant.
it's like some people might make that much in a year and they're getting
Yeah.
it monthly. And he
Yeah.
doesn't have to do, there's no liability for it. He's never going to be,
Yeah.
there's never going to be a repairs and maintenance bill or anything like that, like you would in real estate and
Yep.
like property.
Yep.
Now,
I
I
want to go,
guess I
I want
shouldn't
to
say
go
real
even
estate and
one level
property.
deeper.
I say
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. I want to go one level even deeper
Okay.
now
Hmm.
on this whole strategy that you're talking about. Mineral rights is considered raw land by the government. What type of depreciation recapture do you have to do on raw land?
Zero, because it's not depreciated.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
So you never even have to worry about it. But when you've got the 1031s, there's some different rules on what happened previously. So you just kind of you got to keep all that in mind. But
Get it.
I
You
I
got a
love
cash
that.
flowing property. You make it up from what are the expenses that you were subjected to in the original investment. You make it up by that by not having those expenses. Also, let's talk about we've talked about taxes, and I love taxes. I love how to mitigate taxes. I do that, but I want to talk about income. Let's talk
Okay.
about income from your working interest and your mineral rights.
Yes, yes, that's great.
This
Let's
is
let's
what's
do
so
that.
great. Not only are you using strategies to mitigate and push taxes and do all this through everything we talked about today, but the income from mineral rights and working interest is only taxed at a net value of 85% of that income.
Oh
The
yeah, because we get the
government gives you,
15% depletion,
yeah,
right?
exactly. The government gives you 15% of that income to you for free. They don't tax it.
Right, right. I mean, seriously, that is
Incredible.
that even if you only had one deduction, it would always definitely be that 15% depletion, period. I mean, there may be other deductions that are involved, like taxes and things like that, state taxes, but you always get that 15% depletion
Exactly. Exactly.
right out the
No,
gate. So, I mean, that's
absolutely.
like an instant deduction that when I'm doing a tax return and they've got royalties, that's the first deduction that I put on the
Yeah.
Schedule E.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about it too with people that live in states that have high income tax and they use working interest as a way to mitigate their earned income taxes. That runs down to the state tax too.
Hmm.
So in some states, it's not only the 37% you save in federal, but it's on the state side too. I mean, that's truly incredible. Truly
So,
incredible because there's states out there that charge you a lot of interest. We won't talk about or a lot of taxes. We won't talk about a lot of those, but mitigate your taxes. That's
oh
going to
yeah.
be the number one erosion of your wealth. It's going to be the number one way to accelerate your net worth accumulation.
Well, when I was listening to the six men that were in that van, the conversations all surrounded that. It's all about, if you pay taxes, that's money that you spend and you're getting nothing for it. You pay it and it's just like burning your money. Whereas if you can find ways to minimize the tax implication, but still grow your portfolio, that's why they're on that trajectory. And most
Absolutely.
people that are not savvy investors are not doing these kind of things. They're not educated on it. Doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean there's something
No,
wrong with you. It just means that you haven't been exposed to that, which
you
is
haven't
why
been
I
exposed
am
to it.
right. And
Yeah,
I'm passionate about bringing this because, yeah, you
right,
need to be an accredited investor to do the working interest, but you don't have to be an accredited investor to be able to do the mineral rights.
right.
Any person can do that, right?
So and as far as Eckard is concerned, we offer alternative assets. So to invest with Eckard, you have to be an accredited investor. The other aspect about that is the fact that you need to be contrarian too. Don't go along with the herd. Don't go to the lemmings to the drop off of where the whole investment um, I'm not going to say deep state guides everybody to invest. Think about ways that are alternative and contrarian to ways other people think about investing. Think about it, through the debt offering that Eckerd offers. I mean, that's a healthy return on a fixed debt that you're not going to be able to find in the next 5 or 10 years, even if you're in CDs or T-bills or any of the bonds and stuff like that, because you got interest rates that are going to weigh on that.
Hmm.
So it's just a way for us as a community of investors to just understand how everything works together in a refined plan and go to where we're going to go as a group in the next 5 and 10 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, since you're the person that I send my clients to, can you just share a little bit about what that first conversation looks like? Like, what questions do you typically get from the investors and how you guide them?
Right, right. Well, the first thing that I like to do when I talk to people that you refer to me, I want to get to know them. Where are you at in your investment career? What bucket are you using? Are you using earned income, active income? Are you using qualified money, like in a retirement account or something of that nature? And then you can look at those and use advice for you on how you can structure those investments. One of the first thing about it's a very much unknown asset class. So I get a lot of questions about what are mineral rights, what is working interest, and hopefully I've shed some light on that today. So again, working interest is the participation in drilling that well. Mineral rights is owning a multi-level building under the ground where you're renting out each individual thing as they add more and more wells.
Yeah,
And the beauty about it, I just love that mineral rights section. It's the beauty about it is your tenant is adding more doors for you at their expense.
right. That's the part that really gets me because it's
Exactly.
continually going to grow. It might not grow the same year, it might not grow for 3 or 4 years, but it will continue to grow because especially with the
Absolutely.
technology changes and like you're saying, you're putting the pipelines in, so
Mhm.
you're sweetening the deal for other people to invest their other companies to invest their money into some of the drilling, so that but you get the advantages as the mineral rights because you basically own that, you know, real estate.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Like I shared with you on my portfolio, that I own so much of a mineral. I've literally thrown a blanket over the state of Oklahoma and the state of Texas. But I told you about how much of my portfolio is in that activation stage. And from my returns that I've gotten from them, the wealth that I've generated through owning mineral rights, about 38 to 39% of my portfolio over all the acres that I own have had that infill drilling. I have harvested hundreds and hundreds of acres that I put in my piggy bank that are going to be activated over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years that are going to be at higher oil and gas prices. So I have a tremendous savings account of oil and gas under my control. And that's one of the things that's so incredible about the mineral rights. But now I'm making a lot of money. How do I mitigate that? From my business, my earned income. How do I mitigate that so that I can continue that cycle, get the cash flow wheels from all the different ways to make cash flow, and then use your advice and your expertise and what you bring to the table to help me mitigate that so I can grow it faster and grow it more.
Exactly. I mean, it's a win-win situation. When for me, when I align myself and my clients with companies that we can trust and we can depend on, um, I sleep well at night. My clients are happy because they know that they've got somebody who's proactive working with them and helping them find these opportunities and then helping them implement these opportunities. And a lot of times, tax people don't do that. They'll just take your numbers, put them in return, they give you your return, and that's it. This is the kind of stuff that changes people's lives. And this is why I'm involved in it. This is why I'm investing my energy and time. And, I eventually want to have the kind of investments that you have, where I have, 100 working interest, and then I want like 1,000 of mineral rights. I mean, I like ones and zeros. And so I would like
Yep.
to have huge amounts of that by the time I'm ready to retire. And whether that can happen, I don't know, but I'm willing to try it because I really
Absolutely.
want to build something that when I'm not working, I'm going to have so much money hitting my bank account that I have that much more to give away and help other people because I am a
Absolutely.
giver. And so the
Absolutely.
more money I make, the more money I can give. I remember Kohler had me on a panel, and he was asking all these gals, like, it was like multimillionaire business owners, and then there's me. And he's asking, well, what are you doing next year? And, oh, they're buying another building, they're opening up other offices, they're doing all these different things. And he's like, what about you? And I said, well, next year I want to be able to give hundreds. I want to be able to tip every single person $100 bill. I want a pack of them in my pocket. I want to be able to hand them out because I'm all about how can you give. Now, I don't do it for the tax deduction. I do it because it feels good in my heart. But if you're making a lot of money and it's passive, I'm not having to use my time, trade my time for that money. I made wise investments and that's just coming back to me. To me, that means that just gives me more fuel to be able to share with others that maybe are not in the position that I'm in. And it's a personal choice. And it's definitely I'm not the perfect investor, but I do want to make a lot of money so I can give stuff away because to me that feels really good. So right now what I give away is I go out and I invest my time and my money to meet people like you and meet people like Troy so that I can tell people about you, so that I can give opportunities. I'm giving my time to research and to build relationships so that I can give that kind of information to somebody else. Eventually, I'd like to be able to
Absolutely.
give money, but right now I can only give information and I can give guidance and direction. And that to
Absolutely.
me is just a beautiful gift to be able to do. I'm so grateful that we met, really. I mean, it's like I now have like all these friends that I would never have known if I didn't, take that
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
I'm even texting with some of the people. They're sharing some of their tax questions, and I get to answer those. And so it just opens up doors and just gives us more to communicate on and grow. And when you hang around with people that are doing these things, you can't help but learn. And when you learn, the best thing about knowledge is sharing it with other people. So for
Absolutely.
me, how
Absolutely.
can people like for people that are interested in this? I want to just ask, how can people meet you? How can, besides talking to me and reaching out to me, I'm more than happy for anybody who wants to learn more about this or meet anybody at Eckard or meet Khris. Um, just you can reach out to me on my website, and I'm more than happy to do an email introduction. But um, can you? I guess I'll just do it. I'll just put your contact information underneath
Absolutely, absolutely.
my,
And I'll
yeah.
tell you my contact information now. As I'm very passionate about investors. I'm very passionate about, the asset classes. I'm very passionate about how, to I had such great mentors in my life. And truly, I mean, who the hell answers a cold call? Nobody answers a cold call. That's why I say something was guiding my hand. It led me on a path to meet you and be able to help your clients and be able to do that. So if anybody wants to have a conversation with me, you can reach out to me. I give away my personal cell phone number. My cell phone number is 404 510-1431. My Eckard email address is kallen, that's Allen, at eckardenterprises.com. We have a great, great website that you guys can go to, learn some preliminary information about the asset class at eckardenterprises.com. Reach out to me, sign up as an accredited investor. We don't dig into anybody's personal finances or anything like that. We have an accredited investor questionnaire. You guys can answer that. That opens up a tremendous, tremendous amount of videos and educational books. I sent you those ebooks, and I'll send those out to anybody who's interested in learning more about this asset class. What are mineral rights? How do I use a self-directed IRA? How do I do a Roth conversion? How do I do a 1031? What's working interest? We have such a wealth of knowledge. If you're looking to come in and invest and go into the oil and gas asset class, I want to have investors that understand and want to learn and do that. And that's one of the things about our educational things. The field trip that you and I took, me getting personal with six investors to go out to the oil and gas fields and show them what they're invested in, talk about what the processors are going on, how we do it. Eckard has semi-annual and annual conferences where we bring all of our investors, invite them to come out and get to meet the team, get to meet the whole team as far as Eckard, get to do deep dives with our acquisitions teams, our petroleum engineers, get to meet Troy and his energy. You met his energy and how passionate he is about helping investors grow their net worth. The biggest thing about that and what really impressed me, who the hell puts 600 of their investors in the same room together and feeds them and dines them and wines them and goes and have this great active and lets them talk to each other? How's your investment with Eckard? How are you doing with Eckard? Do they do this, do that? It's a great opportunity. I've made some of the most valued friendships in the last 5 years that I've ever had in my life. I have dear, dear friends. There's a lady that Colleen and I are great friends with, been investing with Eckard for over 20 years. She has over 200 investments with Eckard. And that gave me the peace of mind, the surety that I'm with the right group. I'm with the who that I want to be investing with. Because if somebody isn't satisfied, they're certainly not going to stick around for over 20 years and have over 200 investments in the oil and gas industry.
No, I mean, well, also when they're all talking together, if people weren't happy with what they're investing in, that's not, you don't want them to be talking to each other. But if they're
Exactly.
talking to each other, I mean, I was with these guys for, the entire day, and then three of them I had dinner with. So, I
Yep.
mean, I literally was with them for a very long period of time, and they really, it was just, there was an excitement. There was, I wouldn't say like giddy kind of excitement. It was like they were very comfortable
Opportunity
with,
excitement.
yeah, the
Yeah.
opportunity excitement. So
Yeah.
everyone knows, like one of the biggest things about Eckard when I was talking to people was how much that Eckard spends on education. Not just how much money, but how much time. And that Troy's sending emails every single week on, what's happening now. And he just keeps everybody on. I don't know how he finds the time to do it, but he keeps
He's
everybody
amazing.
up to date
Yeah.
on exactly what's going on. He's probably reminds me of, you know, some other famous people who we won't talk about here, but that probably doesn't sleep that much.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's just here for this period of time to educate. And I think he really enjoys it. That's what it feels
Yeah.
like to me.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like Troy sees things in people and brings the best out of the people that are working with him. And I'm thrilled to be part of someone that he has been reaching out to and really asking me to take that time to learn more about the oil and gas and the 1031s, because that there's a lot of people that are trying to sell their businesses now, and
Sure.
their kids are not taking over their businesses. It's very rare that that's happening now. That used to be the normal thing, but now they're trying to sell their businesses and they don't know what to do with it. They've got all this money coming. They don't want to pay a ton of taxes. They're going into retirement. And so the 1031 program that you're developing over at Eckard, I just think it's fantastic because it's giving people an opportunity. So you sell the business part, well, that's not going to 1031, but you're going to be making your money on that. but you're going to mitigate your taxes because the part that's on the real estate side, you can, 1031 exchange into something different. And then when you make this money, I've got someone on one of my podcasts earlier, Kareem Maji, and Kareem, he's a hedge fund guy. He'll take the money from the business side and he'll invest it for you and help you grow that. So, and he has a very unique way of how he picks the companies that he invests in. So when you're looking at my podcast, go down to my second podcast I ever did. It was one of my favorites, because it was really significant. I'm kind of against Wall Street, and so it was hard for me to like open my heart up to that type of investing until I met Kareem and I listened to how he talks. He's talking just like you were talking about, the head of the company. The head of the company sets the whole money making endeavor. It either makes it positive or makes it negative. And so he's looking at heads of companies, the publicly traded companies, and when they have a leadership change, and who is that new person that they're bringing in? What's their background? What is their track record? All those kind of things. It's the same kind of thing in alternative investments, talking with Troy about Troy at Eckard Enterprises. You look at who he is. He's never been involved in any kind of black marks on his record because
Exactly.
he's doing the right thing. He honors the people that he's investing with, he honors the people that he works with, and he honors himself. And I believe that he honors God. And so to me, that combination is the kind of place that you want to invest in. You want to encourage people like that. There's a lot of oil and gas people out there that are snakes, and I can feel that energy. I've met a few of them, and I don't even tell my clients about these companies because I don't want to ever have someone come back to me and say, I lost money because they ripped me off or it was a Ponzi scheme or something like that. I don't ever want that to happen. I don't feel that with you guys. I've been in your presence. I've watched all the people that you're working with. I've listened to the people that are employees. I've listened to some of the contractors out on the fields, and I'm just in awe of the respect and the kindness that people
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
appreciation for what Troy's put together. And I'm just blessed as well as you and everybody else to
Yeah.
even be part of this and have this conversation. I'm not normally I normally would invest with companies and not get to know the leadership like I'm getting to know now. And I think that Troy wants every investor to know who he is
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
spend time with him so he can shake your hand, so he can sit there and tell you things. And you can't always do it one-on-one every day, but he's doing it every week with his newsletters.
Oh
And
yeah.
people are
Absolutely.
you yeah, and people are using those newsletters to be able to not only educate themselves but be ready for the next investment that
Exactly.
you guys are
Exactly.
setting up.
Yeah,
So
one of the things that I love about his enthusiasm and his fiduciary responsibility to the people that become his partners and investors, he wants you to be educated about things. I mean, he's put series together about due diligence, about how to go in and do research on other types of investments. It's more about the education. We want you to be an educated investor, not only just in oil and gas, but in any endeavor you may have. Is there's a way that we can as a collective group, bring somebody like with your talents in taxes, if we can educate people about other assets and how to do diligence, maybe it keeps them out of a problem. Maybe it keeps them out of a syndication that they think they own the asset, but they really just own part of an LLC and they get trapped inside of that. Or if you look at this, it may have not been the best thing to do, but the hype of the investment got to you. So we really pride ourselves on making people that come to us as investors stronger, healthier, more educated, and ready to really start that trajectory of growing that net worth and getting into a situation where they can now, be comfortable and have that passive income that we want coming all the time.
yeah, know your assets. That's the biggest thing. I noticed that with the guys when I was in the car. They knew every single investment that they had. They were talking to you about the name of this mineral right package, that mineral right package, and
Mhm.
they were paying attention to what's been happening over the years. And I think that's a huge part of it is because of what Troy is so transparent and giving that information
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they become, I don't know, I guess invested in it. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
they're invested in it, but it becomes like a child to them. It's like they're following
Yeah.
it, they're watching it grow up. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
like,
that's kind of
they
fun.
you talk about that and where they're following is that, Eckard has made what we call our Eckard Insights apps. And I've showed you some of that kind of stuff. Each mineral package, each well inside that mineral package, we give our investors the daily reports, the production that comes out, that the activity that's coming in on those things, the spud notices, the permits, all the tax information, the API numbers of the oil and gas wells, how much the revenue has come in, all that. We built that app because it's something that Troy would want an investor and he wanted to give it to you. We have spent millions and millions of dollars on this app to have that type of educational resource, to have that type of transparency for our investors.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, especially the app because that's so much easier. I mean, we're all on our phones, and so everything's there. We're not gonna have to, you don't have to have a laptop to sit there and figure out. You could just sit there. You're at a, at a park or you're at the beach, like I'm down in Naples, Florida. So, you're down at the beach on a Sunday. You can just flip through, listen to the water going and, looking at the weather and then sitting on your phone and learning stuff about oil and gas
Yeah,
and what's going
exactly.
on at Eckerd.
One of
Okay.
my favorite sounds on it is the notifications on my phone to turn on when I get updates on, hey, this well just became active, or hey, they're drilling this permit, hey, they're doing this. I love to talk about my investments as, you know, they're your employees. And, over my mineral rights and over my working interest and my proven PDP assets. I have exposure to over 7,000 wells that are my employees that are making me money 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I always like to end things with a little bit. During this time that you and I have been talking, I've had 7,000 employees in Oklahoma and Texas have been working their butt off and have made me a lot of money over the last 2 hours. I really appreciate you bringing me on, Terri. I think that the synergy that we have and how we can help each other with educating our clients and being able to help people do the right thing, grow their net worth, mitigate those taxes. It's going to be really an incredible journey for us. I'm happy to be involved. And have your clients just call me anytime. We love to talk about just regular investments. Heck, I'm a real estate investor. If you got some questions on real estate and my experience can help you, give me a caller. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Yeah, you're so well-rounded. I think that there's very little that could come up in a conversation that you wouldn't be able to have some kind of experience with, which really makes you just so much even more valuable as a mentor, as a contact, as a person that represents the oil and gas part that a lot of people are interested in. You have a breadth of knowledge and a breadth of experience. I think what makes you so unique is that you're not only working with Eckerd and telling my clients and other people about what the opportunities are, but you're also the investor in it. And you started that way. You started as an investor. You loved it so much and you felt so comfortable and passionate about it that you asked. And here you are retired. You should just be living off of all your passive income. And instead, you're like, nope, I'm going to go to work every day and I'm going to take people on these trips and I'm going to explain what's going on. I'm going to sit for two
Absolutely.
hours an evening after you've been working all day, just because it's that important to you. And I feel blessed that I have this opportunity to actually share you with the world. I mean, I want to keep you to myself, but I'm going to share because that's how I am. But let me move on to my next. It's just a little quick fire, this or that question, just
Sure.
really quick, just for fun. I like to end it like that because it kind of takes off the brevity of like the depth that we were going into and just kind of makes it more fun. So, coffee or tea?
Coffee,
Beach or mountains?
mountains,
Early bird or night owl?
early bird,
Passive income or active business income?
phase of life past.
Okay. Cash flow now or appreciation later?
That one's really hard. I like both. I can't pick.
Okay. You can do a Terry and just say both.
Yeah.
Save and invest or spend and enjoy.
Save and invest so you can spend and enjoy.
There you go. Well, that's how we end with heart, hustle, and a little truth serum. So, well, thank you for joining us. And again, double D, triple T, double deductions with Tax Time Terry. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Terry, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Playing smart with Terry, never tax the same. Money in my pocket,